This is my presentation from the 2013 NAB Futures Conference, which I was very flattered to be asked to keynote. It's a remarkable event by invitation only and only to captains of the industry. We had about 60 or 70 C-level broadcasting big shots in attendance. And I got to admit that I began my presentation with a shocker. I jammed on the brakes of my rental car as I was passing a junkyard in Florida, and how could you not just stare, thinking that once upon a time there were Pam's jingles, a Fairchild reverb, throbbing compression, Audimax and Volumax cranked all the way, just a touch of EQ, and in the parking lot a logoed van, and the DJs would get in the van and go out looking for bumper stickers, and if they spotted yours, you'd get a Doobie Brothers album right on the spot. All live, all local, all day, all night. Now, scrap metal. Broadcasting should not take this personally. All media are going through very disruptive times now. Imagine this. The Chicago Sun-Times fired all the photographers, and their reporters were given mandatory training on using their iPhones to shoot pictures for the newspaper. What is a newspaper now? Isn't necessarily paper, and every newspaper is watching the New York Times like a hawk because they seem to be onto something, reckoning how many pages to give you for free each month before you hit the paywall. We've become so accustomed to getting things free on the internet that the newspaper industry is now grappling with putting the toothpaste back into the tube. Just this past year, in 2013, we lost a real visionary. Retired Gannett chairman Al Newharth reinvented the newspaper when he founded USA Today. And Al said the fact that there is more hunger for news and information and entertainment and advertising than ever before, everywhere in the world, creates greater opportunities if we're smart enough to deliver it in the way that the consumer wants it. Now, today. Not how they wanted to get it 10 years ago or 20 years ago or even 2 or 3 years ago. Your consultant was as shocked as anyone when the news broke that the Graham family was about to sell the Washington Post to the founder of Amazon.com. And God bless them. This family has had this newspaper for a lot of years, and they decided they just couldn't afford to keep doing it the way that it deserved to be done. We don't want to fire any more people. So they found somebody who could afford to. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos says we've had 3 big ideas at Amazon that we've stuck with for 18 years, and they're the reason we're successful. Put the customer first, invent, and be patient. And won't it be interesting to watch how that culture helps the Washington Post survive and thrive? And why can't this be a model for what we in broadcasting do? How about books? You see the Kindle and the Nook on the airplanes and on Amtraks, and it's one of the few times in history that technology has reinvigorated an art form rather than crushing it. Book sales are way up, not necessarily all hard copies, but authors are getting paid for their work delivered in a new way and getting paid in a new metric that subtracts the cost of hard copy publishing. Follow the money. Social media ad spend forecast to grow 43% this year, while radio heaves a sigh of relief about 1% growth. Plain talk. The 20th century media business model isn't a business anymore. And we need to figure out a 21st century broadcasting strategy. So my presentation is entitled Remarkable and Resourceful, 21st Century Media Success Templates. So here we go. In this session, what the heck to actually do about all this stuff that's happening, the question broadcast sales reps should ask how pizza can focus your staff and product, avoiding broadcasters' #1 social media mistake, why you don't necessarily want your own app, even though everybody seems to be hypnotized by their smartphone, and I'm going to give you a secret email address at the end of this presentation, which will take you to a page where you can download fabulous radio prizes, next level of detail on some of the stuff you're about to see and hear, and some cool handouts. What is television now? It's no longer just over-the-air transmitters that are struggling to compete with TNT, A&E, Bravo, TBS, AMC, and all the basic cable channels, or the pay channels. TV is now no longer just delivered over the air or satellite or cable. Internet has reached parity when Hulu is now bigger than HBO. I think it's reasonable to define TV as video. Did you see the Emmy Awards this year? MC Neil Patrick Harris quipped, "We're here to honor the best in television. For you young people, that's what you watch on your phone." And this is not just a generational struggle. Look at your own media consumption habits now. We made history at the Emmys this year in the category of Best Directing for a Drama. It was House of Cards on Netflix. And did you see how they released it? This was not appointment television where you had to be sitting darn still at a certain feed time, or you had to program your DVR to catch it for you. When Netflix released House of Cards, they gave you the whole first season all at once, because people want to watch what they want, when they want to, and binge viewing is convenient to them. Apologies for the eye chart, but here are the numbers. Netflix is now getting more viewing than the network's own online sites. The content will go where people are looking for it. And in case you missed it, you've got to see the video. Kevin Spacey, I believe accepting an award in the UK, talked about the Netflix experience and what he believes it means to our business. The link to this video is included in that web page I'm going to direct you to at the end of the presentation, but here it is in a nutshell. We learned the lesson the music industry didn't. Give people what they want, when they want it, in the form they want it, at a reasonable price, and they'll more likely pay for it than steal it. What is radio now? We recently observed the first anniversary of Superstorm Sandy, and when the lights go out, we'll be there. Every once in a while, we're reminded of the limitations of the digital wireless network. That earthquake that damaged the Washington Monument knocked out cell service in D.C. Every time one of these blizzards rolls up the coast, suddenly the phones stop working because the system isn't built for everyone to be on the phone at the same time. The beauty of broadcasting is that it is broadcasting. It doesn't cost us any more if we have 1 million listeners or viewers than if we have 12. And that is our inherent advantage over IP-delivered content. So the good news is, when the lights go out, we'll be there. The bad news is, when the lights go out and they start rummaging through the drawers for that transistor radio and for some batteries, the light by which they're rummaging may be their smartphone. Shouldn't radio be more than sterno? Proud as we are to be first informer, must we be the medium of last resort? And all of this audio, which now falls under the broad umbrella of radio, seems to sort into two different piles. The time-sensitive stuff and the time-shifted stuff. Possibly the most perishable information radio offers is a traffic report. Because if what's being reported is so, it may not be mere moments later. The weather can change in a New York minute, no matter where you are. News ought to be the very latest, what's happening right now. This stuff doesn't time shift well. Play-by-play is all about if you can't be near TV tonight, or if you're going to be in the car, you won't miss the big game. Talk shows are often very topical about what just happened today, where things stand right now with story du jour. Even these robotic radio stations where the listeners interact and keep reshuffling the playlist, even though it is robotic, the fact that people are voting right now on that electronic dance music or whatever format it is that they're influencing with their votes on the smartphone, even that robo-radio has an element of liveness because they're participating in something that's happening right now, like a chat. The other kind of audio is on demand, that which will time shift well. The term podcast sounds a little dated because it originally meant hear it on the iPod, but think about POD as programming on demand, and nobody does this better than public radio. Go to school on how public radio time shifts programming and offers archived audio on demand. And once you get into that business, there are places other than your own website to offer it. iTunes is the network. Even if you don't sell your stuff there, you can give it away there. And everybody who subscribes to you will get the latest episode every time they sync up their device. We're going to talk in a minute about the use of Twitter, because you can put an MP3 file on a server, and then it has a URL. It has a web address, .mp3. You can tweet that out, and voila, audio goes back in the pocket where the transistor radio used to be via the smartphone. As a practical matter, I think it makes sense to consider AM/FM as car radio. If we can be relevant in that context, we're sure not going to be irrelevant elsewhere. Some music stations play big for the at-work listening audience, which is very long, average quarter hour. But think about car radio, and think fast, because today's dashboard brings us a lot of competition, and AM/FM broadcasting is less and less the in-car audio franchise that it used to be. Just recently, there was a whole conference in Detroit about the connected car, and this is a conversation we're having at lots of industry conventions. But guess what? The future of radio in the car already happened about 10 years ago when that aux jack appeared. And that thing we used to call the cigarette lighter, I got a cord at the Apple store. You plug one end into that, you plug the other end into the iPhone, and suddenly any audio that's on the iPhone is coming out the dashboard speakers. It's the consultant's best friend. I can drive around at home in Rhode Island and listen to my client's station in Texas. So the connected car is not a looming threat off in the future. At the USA's most successful automaker, the Ford Motor Company, they have a full-time futurist. It's her business to think about this stuff. And even she says digital devices were sold to us on the basis that they would save us time, but they steal our time. Have you noticed? And as you listen to radio stations, you hear two kinds. Some are merely apps, and the others are remarkable, which is not to say there's anything wrong with being an app. If they understand that this station gives me continuous country, they will learn to use it that way. Other stations do other things. Definition of terms. By remarkable, I don't mean miraculous. I mean something just came out the speaker that is conspicuous, likely to provoke a remark. Actual photos, 8 years apart, St. Peter's Square, Vatican City. Twice in 8 years we elected a pope. Look what happened in the meantime. St. Peter's Square, Vatican City, 2013. My client, KTBB Tyler, Texas station owner / general manager / conservative pundit / where can I go to report next, Paul Gleiser, spent a week in Rome, twice, 8 years apart. Made money on the trip by picking up the phone, We sold the sponsorship to Trinity Mother Frances Hospital. And he's not even Catholic. But it was remarkable radio and video, not just on the station's website, but if you squint, you will see the NBC affiliates logo in his market, because they sure weren't going to send anyone. So he swapped them video, which included the bug, for the radio sponsor on TV. Win-win. And his work was remarkable stuff. And he told them about it not just on radio and TV, but on the smartphone, via Twitter itself. You could follow along as the suspense was eventually resolved. Look at the most recent tweet on top there. 4 ballots now taken at Papal Conclave. No Pope. Next chance for white smoke, 1 p.m. Texas time. He localized the story half a world away. He even showed you where the smoke comes from. When it's black smoke, the vote was inconclusive. When it's white smoke, we have a new pope. Here's where the smoke comes from. Inside the Sistine Chapel. Woody Allen was right. 80% of life is showing up. Holy smoke! Welcome Pope Francis. And not only was the photo included in the tweet, but he gave you a link to the most recent piece he had filed, be it audio or video. He put his work in the pocket. This rock-ribbed righty pundit spoke in his own voice. And Paul asked rhetorically, but can he get away with it in Cuba? This man waves the flags of the Holy See and Cuba on St. Peter's Square. This is what I mean by remarkable. It's conspicuous. Remarkable also means relevant and informative. But relevant to whom? And here's where the pizza comes in. At the radio stations I work with that have Rush Limbaugh, there's a 3-hour babysitter around lunchtime for us to gather everybody we can fit in the conference room, and you bring in a stack of pizzas, and you ask yourself, who do you think you're talking to? It's time to answer the most frequently asked question that a consultant gets. What's our demographic? And I'm often asked, is it adults 25 to 54? Is it male? Is it female? And I tell them, don't get distracted by the numbers. You know who we want listening to this radio station? Politics aside, this would be a home run. A family that looks like this is a retail consumption machine. Imagine the delight of your local direct retail advertiser if this minivan pulls into the parking lot. If you have a radio station, who are your Mike and Lisa? Does your target listener look like this or like this? Every day in the USA, 8,000 people turn 65. Every 7 seconds, someone turns 55. It's the fastest growing demographic group in the country and now numbers 35 million people that account for close to $2 trillion in annual spending. So get the pizza, get into the conference room, get everybody you can who works at the station in there, and decide who are Mike and Lisa. Where do they live? Where do they work? Do they own? Do they rent? 1 car, 2 cars, leased, owned, new, used? Where do they dine out if they can afford to? Where do they vacation if they can afford to? How many kids, how old? Got a pet? Profile these people and rip some pictures out of magazines or buy some stock photos online for a couple of bucks and hang the photos of Mike and Lisa in the studio, in the newsroom, wherever commercial or promo copy is being written, and pass everything through the filter of the target listener. Remarkable also means local. Last year's NAB Crystal Award winner was this year's NAB Marconi Award winner. My client, WSOY, Decatur, Illinois, an AM station at 1340, raised 820,000 pounds of food in this year's annual food drive to feed the local hungry folks. When you do something like this, you're not only doing good, but you're doing well because advertisers notice. Local news has never been more opportune because listeners and advertisers already hear the discernible difference between radio's local content haves and have-nots. They can tell which stations are the apps and which stations are remarkable. For TV, local news is content you control. Listeners sure aren't going to get local news from Sirius XM or Pandora, and viewers won't get it from basic cable channels somewhere else. And local news scales to digital real well, and you see the increased demand for digital. Remarkable also means interactive. And this is a point about which I relentlessly consistently direct the talk radio talent that I coach. People expect to interact with content and the provider. The problem with talk radio, where I work, is that too many people in it think that talk radio means we talk, you listen. And your audience expects to become part of the show. They expect to contribute to the programming. This is nothing new. It just got easier for them to play. This month we observe a sad anniversary, what may have been the first conspicuous case of citizen journalism. Abraham Zapruder stood on the grassy knoll with an 8mm camera and captured a shot we'd like to forget, which happened seconds after the frame you're seeing here. Fast forward to April 15, 2013. There were likely more cameras in use in one place at the Boston Marathon than everywhere else in the world at that moment. I saw an iPhone commercial recently claiming that more pictures are taken every day with iPhone than with cameras. And no wonder they caught the guy so quickly. There are cameras everywhere now. Look how people followed the Boston bombing stories. TV was number 1. Online or mobile device, number 2. Radio, number 3. Not surprisingly, newspapers, number 4. There is a timeliness to a breaking story that disadvantages newspapers. And if you were in the Boston area, maybe TV got an unfair advantage because people were being told, shelter in place. Translation, go home, don't open the door. So likely the first thing they would do is turn on TV. But notice how prominent online or on a mobile device now is in terms of information consumption. The number 1 retail advertiser in the Providence, Rhode Island market, the local TV market that I'm watching when I am home, is Cardi's Furniture Superstores. If you live in southern New England, you know Nick, Ron, and Pete Cardi, the Larry, Moe, and Curly of furniture. And they have these kiosks in the Cardi's Furniture Superstore's various locations and at other locations in major malls throughout southern New England. When there's a big concert at the Civic Center, wherever people gather, you might see the Roadshow kiosk. You push the button, you talk into the lens, and you may get your 15 seconds of fame tomorrow morning on the Roadshow, the local morning show on the Fox TV station. A sponsored turnstile for people to contribute, which they expect to do with their media now. This is remarkable and resourceful and delightfully local and obviously sponsorable. In radio, we have been transitioning from diary-based measurement to the portable people meter. PPM punishes monologue. And I'm shaking a bony index finger in the face of the talk radio talent that I coach, cautioning them that if you're not talking to a caller or talking to a guest, you may be talking to yourself. Plain talk, the early 90s talk radio revolution is over. In the ratings, 2013, first time ever that the news talk format had 3 consecutive months below a 9 share. And how about revenue? Adult contemporary has now overtaken news talk as radio's top billing format. What an indictment With music radio so under attack from Pandora, from Sirius XM, from 1,000 songs on your phone, that a music format could still outrank news talk, which supports much more commercial inventory than you would dare put on a music station, and has great qualitative data. This has more than a little to do with Rush Limbaugh's Sandra Fluke faux pas, but it's not just that. To advertisers, remarkable is more than just 30 or 60 seconds of we talk, you listen. Just try pitching an agency without a digital component in the pitch. And local retailers on Main Street, USA are pretty darn observant too. Where don't you see this? It's obvious to somebody with a storefront where consumers' attention is, and it's incumbent upon us to be there. So advertisers want more than just 30 or 60 seconds of we talk, you listen. They see that the digital platform has found traction, and I'm often asked, how do we get an app? We got to get on the smartphone, and yes, you do, but maybe you don't want your own app. You want to be resourceful. Use the app they're already using. Here's the problem with having your own app. They have to know that you have one, and you can use your Air to tell them that. But then they have to download it, and once it's downloaded, they have to install it. I must have a dozen apps on my iPhone that seemed like a cool idea when I downloaded it, but it still says new, meaning I haven't installed it or used it yet. And even if you can tell them you have one, get them to download it, get them to install it, then you have to get them to use it. And you see how many apps they have on that phone? Look at the one they're already using. And the price is right. You can use Twitter for free. Look who rocks Twitter. Even before he told the Celtics he was retiring, Shaquille O'Neal tweeted out a video that he made on his smartphone thanking his fans, announcing his retirement, and saying, 19 years in the NBA. We did it. Notice he didn't say, I did it. He said, we did it. And you know who told him to say it that way? She did. You know who else rocks Twitter? The Rock himself, Dwayne Johnson. You couldn't be a bigger star than this guy is now, and with a couple of major motion pictures already in the can, you won't be able to get away from this guy soon. If you follow him on Twitter, you will see a clinic on how to use this tool and bond with your tribe. And you know who showed him how to do it? The same mystery woman. You will get to see her and hear her personal story, which is very impressive, very poignant, when you look at a video that I am including in your virtual handouts. It's a TED Talk by Amy Jo Martin, author of a book I highly recommend you read. I sent a stack of these to all my clients when it came out. It's titled Renegades Write the Rules, How the Digital Royalty Used Social Media to Innovate. Amy Jo Martin used to be in the marketing department for the NBA Phoenix Suns. She quit and hung out her shingle, and her clients include The Rock and Shaquille O'Neal and the Chicago White Sox and UFC and major corporations. And her own remarkable story is the free prize inside. This book gives away more than you're expecting, so I highly recommend you read this, pass it around at work, and order some pizza. Most common mistake broadcasters make with social media? The one you'd expect most. Using it to broadcast. Social media is not broadcasting. On air versus social. On air is monolithic. We have a tower that we push stuff through. Social is interactive. We swap content with and as individuals. On air is live, and it's in real time, and it's local. Social is accessible on demand and worldwide. On air, we are an authority. In social media, we are a peer to the user. Social media is not broadcasting, it's engagement. It's a conversation. And that's a paradigm shift if you're a broadcaster, because it's a conversation we're having in public. And there are some very easy to commit social media faux pas I'd like to help you avoid, such as pushing the station's agenda. You will get unfollowed quickly if it's just one ad after another for what you're up to. Cardinal sin, inviting questions and then not responding in a timely fashion. Mortal sin, ignoring direct questions. Worst of all, ducking tough questions. There was a radio station, I believe in Atlanta, who had to terminate a popular on-air personality. And of course their Facebook page exploded, and they did the wrongest thing you could have done. They deleted all the posts and put up a coupon for one of the sponsors. Ouch! Among your handouts, my notes from a great presentation at the Arbitron Client Conference a year ago. Arbitron and DMR did a session called Let's Get Engaged, with some do's and don'ts that broadcasters should be aware of when using social media. So that's part of what I have for you at the end of the presentation. Use social media to make them the star. Everywhere I go in my travels, I hear radio stations begging to follow us on Twitter. Be our Facebook friend. You should do the opposite. Tell them you'll follow them, and you'll get more of them to follow you. Great example of legacy media using social media. MSNBC, as the President's State of the Union message approached. This is an event that no one news outlet owns, but they all want to. So MSNBC tweeted out, fill in the blank. The state of our union is blank. And on Twitter and on TV they said, write it, take a picture, and tweet it with the hashtag SOTUIS. Then see it here. And your favorite MSNBC personalities showed you how to play. They all completed the sentence, took a picture of them holding up the sign, and said, do this. And as soon as they did, viewers started voting. Then the viewers got into the act, and their responses were even cooler. In the upper left-hand corner, one viewer offered, in a very graphically handsome way, the State of the Union is hopeful. You see sunrise on the horizon. And this was a chance for the viewer to show off a little. He or she could create that cool graphic. In the lower right-hand corner, a more succinct response. The State of the Union is brilliant. Bottom center, very MSNBC. The State of the Union is, through traffic, merge left. How about the poignant comment, top center? The State of the Union is keeping veterans safe from all harm, including themselves. The viewer, the online consumer, got a chance to be part of the show. That's resourceful. And here's a resourceful New Year's resolution. Promise yourself this 2014 goal. No dark time in the production studio. You want to line out the door. See what major corporations are doing? Brands like Pepsi and Walmart, Toyota, and most recently Bloomingdale's have started producing their own broadcast-like content. They've got online video or digital radio product that they're producing that allows them to control and tell their story. Your TV or radio station is Hollywood of podcasting. You are a local, state-of-the-art production facility with personalities and producers and professional announcers who can help an advertiser tell a story. Don't just think in terms of programming your transmitter, but use your transmitter to point people to stories you're telling on your or the advertiser's digital platform. That's resourceful. Exploit your incumbency. While we still have habitual use, The two generations who control most of the retail spending in the USA grew up with radio and TV habits. You can use the transmitter to direct their attention to your other platform. Plain talk, when I say incumbency, milk it while you still have it, because you see the way digital media are being adopted. As one of my clients put it, every radio station has a website. How many websites have a radio station? If you're TV, substitute the words TV. Same proposition. Are there advertisers in your market doing business online? Who's got a shopping cart? Who's got a showroom online? And here's that question. Every rep should ask advertisers with internet assets, unless we tell our listeners, how will they know it's there? You want a clinic in resourcefulness? If you haven't seen it, rent the movie Moneyball. How the lowly Oakland Athletics, with their puny payroll, set baseball's consecutive wins record. Resourceful HR that caused every other team in baseball to tear apart their lineup and repack it in the same model. You want to win games, you don't buy players. You want to win games, you got to get runs. You want to get runs, you got to get on base. Who's good at getting on base? That's Resourceful HR. This is the face of Resourceful HR, and I'll show you her face, but I won't tell you her name because I don't want you to steal her from my client station. She is the radio station's news reporter, afternoon news anchor, is now hosting a 5 o'clock news hour, is the station's photographer and videographer, and is not a clock watcher. She loves doing the work. We bought her a nice digital camera, and she spent an entire day driving around the market, capturing photos and file footage video of likely news locations around the market, so that this small market station's website is not merely a brochure about the radio station, it is an organic, frequently updated news source for the market. You can find her if you go look for her. I don't want you to find her personally because we'd miss her a lot. But if you beat the bushes, you can find the next generation of talent who is facile with all of these tools. Next week I am speaking in Boston at the Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Annual Convention. Hundreds of kids who are involved in college radio, not necessarily AM or FM stations, because the radio they do is often on the digital platform. But there they are. I walk among them, and you should too. As promised, fabulous radio prizes. Write down this email address, futures@hollandcooke.com. Within moments, my robot will direct you to a secret web page on which you will see a video of this presentation if you'd like to share it with your staff. You will get the November issue of my meaty monthly newsletter. Be sure you see page 8. I've got those Arbitron DMR conference notes about social media. Let's get engaged. They'll help you avoid social media faux pas, and several other uncanny examples of the kind of stuff I've talked about in this presentation. I've got that Kevin Spacey video and the video of Amy Jo Martin's TED Talk, and I promise, no spam.